All right. So as always, we're going to record this, post it to the Summer Voice page afterward. So if you need to leave and you want to review something that you missed, you can always check it out there. It usually takes us about a week to get it up. If you click on the three little dots that say more on the bottom, you can enable captions if that's helpful for following along. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. If you have any technical questions, issues that you run into, I normally refer people to Courtney, but she's out sick. So if you will just message Vanessa directly, and I'm going to ask her to kind of monitor the chat for me too, while I'm talking about other things. We don't have like a note taker exactly for this meeting. Cynthia, I think you were up for the last meeting, but we did that one in person. Are you up for taking minutes this time?
Yep.
Thank you. We'll do a little breakout room session. So when we're all in breakout rooms, please ask someone to take notes for your breakout room. And then you can share those with me directly. And as always, we'll go till 5:15 officially, and then, or try to stay to that. And if we have a little conversation we want to extend beyond that, we'll stay till 5:30, but you can leave at 5:15 as needed. Let me share my screen. Are you all seeing my slides now? Yeah, okay, good. All right, so we're in meeting 9. Planning and mobilization is what I'm calling it, but we're really going to be in a planning phase for kind of a long time now. That's just where we're at for the foreseeable future. But we today we're going to talk about a couple specific things. We're just going to like sort of situate ourselves in our process right now, where we're at. We're going to talk about a little bit of housekeeping, some announcements, although we think we've done a little bit of that already, but I'll put in a plug for the OSRP because I'm working on that too. I'll give you a brief update on Offshoot's work so far, and then we're going to spend some time thinking about the list of experts that that I sent you all today. Should have it in your inbox. And then we're going to discuss mobilizing our networks, so trying to prepare for when we need to be connecting with the community, how we do that. And just for the public who's here with us, we're so happy you're here. Please hang around, listen in. I'll send you to the breakout groups with everybody else. Feel free to participate mostly via the chat in the breakout groups. If you want to chat with us, feel free to, but we just try to make sure we reserve as much time as possible for getting the committee through their work. We set aside some time at the end of the meeting for public comment, but if you can't stay to the end, feel free to go to the Summer Voice page and you can leave a note in the comment section, or you can fill out that form if you want sort of a longer form thing. Feel free to communicate with us in every and all way. We're happy you're around. Okay, so just a quick overview where we're at. We've done the process of getting our consultant team hired, on board. Thank you all so much for all the work you put in for that and for coming to meetings that were, you know, sort of planned a little bit in a hurried way in order to get those interviews done and everything. It was great. I feel really positively about how much participation I got from all of you. I'm so glad you were there and involved. So that's awesome. Where we're at now is they're going to be in that planning process, trying to do the site analysis, doing their research. They're going to be in touch with us at certain points along the way. And you committee are going to be involved in reviewing, discussing drafts, vetting materials like this list of experts that we'll talk about today. So we're in sort of the January 8th meeting. We're going to be meeting once a month from now through June, anticipating to be done in June, hopefully. Although I will say, just for the record, done means, you know, done with the production of the plan. That's really Offshoot's done moment. And I think we can start to figure out what the life of this is after the plan is done itself, but there will be lots of need for plan promotion, pilot projects, all of that that'll come up afterwards. So done is, done with this phase. Just a reminder, we went over this at the last meeting, but that was in July. So, why would you remember all of this? But our objectives as a committee is providing a space for us to be deliberating things, having conversations about, the topics here that can help inform the consultant team. We're going to advise that consultant team in a variety of ways. If we have outreach events, I'm going to be looking to you all to help support us in that. And then helping us to assist connecting with the community, synthesizing that information, and generating ideas that can help inform our design solutions that we'll be putting in that plan itself. Okay, that's where we're at for the committee, sort of overview. One small plug of housekeeping for our side is that we're doing this open space and recreation plan process right now, which sets out goals for the city with regard to open space and recreational programming for 7 years. We produced an action plan based on community input. So there's a survey. If you haven't taken it, dig into your emails, take that. I'll post the link in here too.
Are you running those meetings?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, are you sick of me yet? Please come to a meeting this week.
No, nothing like that. Just curiosity.
Yes. Yep, I will be running those meetings with Louisa and Arn, and maybe Vanessa will be there too. But we're going to be, it's a group effort, but I will definitely be there. Just to say, I've just lost the survey link. I must have deleted it. Okay, I'll pop that in later. Or Vanessa, if you could find it from the internet.
Yep.
Thank you. So we have 2 in-person community meetings this week to talk about a couple sort of key topics, generally what you all want in the open space network, what we need to be working on, what the issues are, barriers to access, all of that. We're also going to be focusing on urban agriculture, climate resiliency in parks, kind of natural spaces and passive parks, and play and recreational programs as well. So we're going to do little breakout groups, talk things through. The online meeting is going to be more of an opportunity for us to show the draft action plan and get feedback on that. So if you want to just come to that, see what we've come up with and provide feedback on that, we'd love to have you there as well. Any other announcements from the committee that haven't been said yet? Events coming up, anything like that? Okay. It's winter, so there's a little less going on right now. All right. So, Offshoots has been kind of gathering things. They're in this sort of gathering, organizing phase of this process. It takes a little while for us to get contracts settled and all of that. So they're really hitting the ground running this month. Holidays also get in the way. So where we're at the moment is that they're digging into site analysis, which we say sort of in the broadest sense, but what they're really doing is gathering data and resources through meetings and coordination with Nick Dorian, with our own Amy and Claire. They've had one meeting with Amy and Claire and Nick to talk about this stuff, and we're going to have another one coming up to understand the insects that are in Somerville, the data we have, data we're going to be trying to collect going forward, trying to parse out that data. So they're categorizing species, looking primarily at 5 categories: bees, butterflies, hoverflies, wasps, and beetles. And they're also looking at the ruby-throated hummingbird as a pollinator bird species. They're starting to sift through GIS data from the city to think about big, broad mapping across the entire cities we've asked them to do. They're developing the draft list of experts that they want to talk to, which we'll talk about. They're imagining pilot projects, just starting to develop kind of a list of things that we could do. They're going to help us prioritize those. conducting a literature review of what's out there, and then getting up to speed on the work that the committee's done. So they've been watching videos, looking at our notes, that sort of stuff. The next phase is going to be community engagement. So they're going to be talking to us at the next meeting. They're going to come to the February meeting, and they're going to talk to us a bit about the site analysis so far, insect analysis, and then they're going to start to discuss with us community engagement strategies. They're going to bring Harry, one of the sub-consultants, community engagement expert. And I think we're thinking about community engagement in two prongs a bit. One is as part of the analysis process, where we want to understand who's in Somerville, the limitations and opportunities they have as residents to increase habitat. Sorry, my cat is yelling at me right now. I assume none of you can hear that, but it's a little distracting. And then also for plan promotion. So those probably will be overlapping in some ways where we want to be building, you know, a committed body of residents, both through kind of analysis and trying to help us understand what proposals we can make that will be most effective for residents, for developers, businesses, all of that, all of the toolkits that we've talked about. And then also just trying to get the word out there so that we have as much buy-in as possible in the future. So those may happen slightly simultaneously, but also will be slightly different pieces of that puzzle. But they will discuss this with us more in the future. And what we're going to talk about today is their draft list of experts. So what they imagine, they talked about this a bit in the interview process, but I'll just recap. They are hoping to meet with a variety of experts who will act like a little bit of an in-person literature review. So they'll be sharing their own research, helping us identify what their key findings are that can inform our own planning process. And Offshoots came up with this initial list, but we have to narrow it down to about 10. And they're also interested if there are any other names that aren't on this list that you all think should be on the list. And we can talk about that. They're going to be a bit of like a team roster, like folks we can go back to in the future to review the proposals we're coming up with, to ask questions of. And these interviews, they're going to be done in a way that you all can attend if you're available at that time, and if you're not, we'll record them and you can watch it later. We'll do a little Q&A. So it's a point for us to learn from those people as a group, in addition to the design team. I'm just gonna stop sharing. So I hope everyone's had a chance to at least scan that list. And we're just gonna take a few minutes in breakout groups to discuss that list in a smaller cluster of folks. So pull that up. I will, if anyone doesn't have it, yeah, Barbie, I can try to send that to you. Let me see if I can just get it on a Google Doc and I'll share that. But I'm gonna get the breakout groups started and then I will I'll get that online for anyone who doesn't have it or is visiting today. Okay, just give me 1 second. We don't have Tori today. All right. There's some of you who aren't assigned. Let me pop you in just a second. So just to recap for David and Tori, we've been discussing the expert list. We're trying to get it down to about 10 people or so. And if there are any additional names that you wish were on there, we can talk about that too. So, yeah, do we want to go with group by group? Anyone want to volunteer?
I'm happy to report for group 3. I think we were.
Jenny?
So pretty, sorry, they're fairly simple notes, is more thumbs up and thumbs down. We really liked Anne from the Greater Boston area group. It felt important to have a species interaction specialist, and Naomi fit the bill for that, although others did as well. We liked the nocturnal focus of Avalon Owens. We thought, it's a Primac or Primark? Did I write this wrong? Primac.
Primac, yeah.
Was not the best for our topic, and now I can't remember why, but that was the note I took. Eli needed more info. We just didn't know enough about what Eli does. We had some concern that there were quite a few people who were very honeybee focused. Kim was the first one that came across in the list, but I do know, because through Rosemary Malfi, who was below Kim on the list, that they worked in a lab together, and Kim has a background of a lot of native pollinators, but just now is the state's bee apiary specialist. So we were wondering if maybe it's good to have, like, not to focus on honeybees, but to have a bridge to someone who's aware of them, because they're not going away, but we also don't want someone who's only focuses honeybees and then we're promoting honeybees. So we were sort of torn about what to do with that. We liked the systems interactions of Susanna. Rosemary, Rosemary's my predecessor at the Pollinator Network. She's amazing. I think personally, this is my personal note, I think she's terrific. And then I think the group liked that she was from Xerxes. I have Eli again. Is there another Eli?
Uli.
Oh, it was Uli. It auto-corrected. Uli, there was a little concern that maybe Uli was native plant. Obviously, it is a native plant specialist, but maybe if the thought was if we get a pollinator specialist, then the native plants go along with that, and that we weren't quite sure. Maybe David can respond, but we weren't quite sure if Uli was also a pollinator specialist.
Yeah, just to feed on that, Renee. Yeah, we were saying that we prefer to work from the pollinators down to the plant, because usually specialists or people who work with pollinators or insects know the substrate or the habitats rather than working the opposite way around, right? So we like the focus on the pollinator to the plant. Yeah, right. So that's why Uli didn't really fit the bill here.
Kelly Gill liked that they have their planning and design aspect of it. Patricia felt way too honeybee focused. Elizabeth Crone, so we were in general liking people who are were familiar with this area, so sort of ruled out maybe the national and potentially regional folks, but Elizabeth used to be here as part of Tufts Pollinator Initiative. So, and in addition to that, she has a lot of really good, we really liked her. And overall, we were focusing on people that are working in the field rather than just potentially scholars. Mm-hmm. That's our list. If anyone in group 3 wants to add things, I did not take amazing notes, so you will not hurt my feelings if you want to chime in.
No, you did good.
Were there any additions to the list that weren't on here, but that you were interested in hearing from?
We didn't even get to that point.
That's okay.
We'll think about it.
If you think about that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Next group.
I'll do group. I think we were group 1.
Good thing.
So, we liked all of the names from the Greater Boston list. And the comment about Dr. Primac or Richard Primac is, might actually be good to have someone who is tracking climate change as it affects plant growth and migration patterns. So that's certainly something we're going to be seeing over the next several years. We had the same observations about some of the more far-flung and research-based folks like Angela Laws and Ellen Lake, a little bit too removed from what we're trying to do. We thought it would not necessarily be a good use of time to speak to Eli Block about the East Hampton pollinator plan, because we did such an extensive review of existing plans already during the prior phase of the project. We also liked Patricia Alcara bringing her community engagement background, focused on accessibility for the spaces, which is going to be an important piece for the public engagement. Let's see, what else? So we talked about Elizabeth Crone as well, thinking that we already have Nick Dorian on with Offshoots team, so it wasn't clear whether having his former advisor would add that much to the discussion. We agreed that it wouldn't be helpful to have Kim participate in her, being a apiary program coordinator, not a clear help to what we're trying to do. What am I missing? We liked Susanna Lehrman with her focus on urban spaces. We had the same feeling about Uli Lorimer. Everyone knows he's with Native Plant Trust. Not as clear what value he would bring to this conversation. What have I missed? Other people in group one. Oh, also, Tori had a great suggestion, which would be to add Dr. Gagir to the folks that get interviewed, since he's been doing this work in the region for so long.
Can I add a few things, since I thought the meeting started at 4 and wasn't able to participate in this conversation? Just for me, Patricia Algara, who is primarily focused on honey, founding Honey with the Heart, passionate advocate. I understand her advocate for the public realm, but she's a beekeeper. And I don't think in this moment, when our native bees are the ones that are suffering, I don't think that it is wise to have people who are focused on keeping bees. That's not the bees that need saving right now. And I think this, if beekeeping was a thing that if the city wanted to do beekeeping courses, or the Somerville Garden Club, I think it would need to happen outside of this program. I feel so strongly about that. I'd love to further that conversation. Again, Laura Roast, I think we did not support her. I support having Uli Lorimer there. He is one of the most knowledgeable people who has everyday interactions and observations with plants that we don't see often outside of that area because of the intense deer browse. And I think making a connection with him would also set us up well with Garden in the Woods, and maybe starting to have some contract growing. If you've seen his new book, it's just amazing about the amount of native plants that, again, not only do we not see in non-native plant nurseries, but we don't have them in our environment. And the fact that he has intense knowledge of that, I think it would be a miss not to include him. And again, having Dr. Robert Jagir, who knows the plant interactions deeply of of our endangered bees and who's setting up sites to study all over Massachusetts. I think if Somerville became a site, then we would be able to hopefully recharge the connections in urban areas. So that's what I would have said if I had been able to participate. Thanks.
I know we've got another group to hear from, but I want to circle back about Patricia Algara. She is not only a beekeeper, she is done a lot with community-driven design, and that's why we thought that she would be a good person to speak to. So
Would we?
a big piece of this is going to be getting buy-in from people to actually do the stuff that we recommend in the plan. And if she's got a lot of experience getting families and folks engaged, then that's probably someone we'd like to talk to. That's my perspective.
I could get behind that if we asked her really not to focus on honeybees. It just seems so problematic.
I'm marking some things that are points of contention. I just want to, before we do questions and dig into the nitty-gritty of this, can we just get the last group to report out on their thoughts, and then let's take apart the ones that we're not sure about, and we'll come back to those comments. Can anyone report out for group 2?
I can try if the group helps. I think I'll just sort of reinforce what some of the other groups said. We sort of leaned heavily on the greater Boston area folks, and for reasons like people who were doing research related to both opportunities and threats to pollinators. Like Avalon's work with light, for instance, just recognizing that that's a very urban issue that I would love to learn more about, and I think we need to impact this. We had also flagged Richard Permack for the climate change piece, because that didn't seem to pop up anywhere else. And it, again, seems like something that we're going to have to get our heads around. There was we had the same bee conversation, and we actually sort of our compromise was that Patricia Algara, who had other things that we were thinking would be helpful, could also bring an understanding of bees and it would be covered there. Didn't have to be heavy bee research. We also we have the question on moths. When you made the list of what particular pollinator sort of groups were going to be focused on, we didn't hear moths. So we wondered if it was butterflies and moths, because we're thinking like nighttime pollination, and there was somebody in there who was particularly working on moths. We will mention that Elizabeth Crohn's work, some of it was on impacts of climate change as well. And I would reinforce Tori's recommendation of including Uli in the list. You can, if there's no plant, if we can't get the plants that we need, then we're not going to ever get those parts together. So I think it really is important to have someone who knows plants and propagation and how we can, upscale that to meet the needs. Because there is a supply issue there. Anything else, team? Oh, Susanna Lehrman, we mentioned. Yes, for urban. And I think we said no to the same people for the same reasons that other groups did.
I guess I just wanted to reiterate my interest in Patricia Algara because of her experience, particularly working with children's and family, which is where a lot of the pollinator gardens, like a lot of open space that Somerville has is parks and playgrounds. And that's also how we build a foundation for the next generation to be involved in this kind of work and have interest in this kind of work, is through children and getting their families involved. So incorporating that kind of educational aspect, in addition to having expertise in the pollinators themselves, I think is very important from my perspective.
Yes, thanks, Barbie. We also talked about the quality and equity being part of her description as well, in terms of advocacy. Oh, and we also wondered about an international perspective. That was the one thing that we were wondering. Like, there are urban settings outside of the US that have been doing some of this work, and are there any things that we could learn from there, even if it's Canada to the north? But just opening that up.
I think Claire.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's a good point about the native. I was wondering if we can reach out to the Grow Native people, for example, because they're an example. I find them very inclusive, very open, very accessible, more so than other organizations, many organizations that we see around. And I think the inclusiveness is very important. They are accessible. That's something that is really cool about them. So maybe that is the one lacking. About the phenology, I think that Primac is busy, very busy. I think that people who are system focused have a phenology component, because they're studying the phenology of, the habitat that goes with the insects. So I was not too worried about the phenology and climate aspect, because it should be somehow gathered or tackled by the system people and the species interaction people, right? So I just wanted to mention that.
Good points.
Another thing too, by the way, while we're talking about that, the international or the global component, plant pathogen, there was someone about plant pathogen or, pathogen in general, which is more natural. I think these guys are important because if we're just too focused on our area, we might miss what comes as, threat from the outside. So having this kind of knowledge is important, right?
Yeah. So I'm just going to call out a couple points of like debate for us. I think one, seeing that there's an agreement that we like some folks who have some urban experience and understanding, more inclined to getting folks who are in the field, who aren't highly sort of academic, separate from field work, so not too scholarly. Maybe we do want to have someone with some plant focus in there. Could be Uli, could be Grow Native. That's maybe a question. Bee focus, maybe we bring in Algara, who has a lot of other stuff that she's talking about and dealing with, but maybe the other bee focused folks we remove from the list. That's a question. And then are the other sort of system focused, interaction focused experts enough for us to not worry about trying to wrangle Primac, what's his first name? Dr. Richard Primac, to find a time to meet with us. Anyone want to jump in there?
Well, and I think just Tori's point about Dr. Giguere.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tori.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned. And how do you say her name? Dr. Agrawal? Him.
Patricia Algara, is that? I think that's the.
No.
You're looking at
Agrawal. First one.
Agrawal.
I don't know where he has landed in general with the recommendations, but it just, a little red flag came out when talking about the evolution of interactions between wild plants and their insect pests. I don't know if he means invasive pests, but when the scientist uses that word, it just it surprises me. It's jarring to me. So I don't know. and that comes out oftentimes with a lot of universities. It's their focus is on like management of pests, but I didn't click on the link. I could do so now. But in general, did we have a thought of where we were landing on this person?
I would just like to say I would second that. When I read the word pests, I'm like, what is he talking about, pests? How is he defining that?
Mhm.
Just because an insect may damage a plant because that's what it does that mean it's a pest?
Right.
No.
Claire, is that something you have an understanding of?
It's,
terms of how to-
I was about to say that it might be the technical term again, so it's right, which
Right.
it's kind of a local invasive, which, for example, the Eastern tent caterpillar is a native, right? And, but it's a pest for the ornamental industry because sometimes, and it can really invade. So I wonder if it was not one of my favorite anyway, but I wonder if it's a technical term. He's referring more to a technical term there, right?
So who are we talking about?
Anurag Agarwal, is it the one, Tori?
Yes.
Anurag Agarwal.
He's
Agrawal.
the first name under the Northeast New England section.
It's a better way of saying it, right?
I'm just gonna pop on the website and see if
Yeah, it's a good point.
understand more.
Do
So
we
I
know
think
how
there's some. Oh, go ahead, Renee.
I was just curious if this list was self-selecting. Is this like, do any of these people even know they're on this list?
Probably not at this point. I don't think they've sent out any invitations yet. They're kind of waiting to get feedback from us.
I'm also going to throw out the Caterpillar Lab, a potential. I don't know if it would end up on this list, but a potential ally in general. They do lots of educational.
Corey, wait a minute. Who's the Caterpillar Lab?
Wait, what happened?
I don't know who the Caterpillar Lab is. So
Oh,
everything you're saying doesn't mean anything to me.
Okay, so the Caterpillar Lab is a nonprofit that used to be out of Cambridge. And what they do is that they they monitor caterpillars and their plant interactions. And then oftentimes they have a lab where they do grow. They do grow Cecropia moths. I don't know if they do monarchs. They do Luna moths. And by growing, I mean, having an insect, a hatchery in which they feed the caterpillars the food they need. And they have an understanding of not only which plants a Cecropia moth might eat, but how in different regions of the country, it has different preferences. And so they oftentimes bring the caterpillars to schools and anyone who would have them, and their goal is just to get people excited about butterfly. Lepidoptera is their sole focus, so getting them excited about butterflies and moths and understanding which plants they need. And maybe I just got a calendar from them that's really exciting. It's a 365-day calendar, and every calendar is a caterpillar, and it talks about their life cycle. So
I think we can also I'm gonna put this on the list, but we can also think about who are our allies moving forward. I think is please keep track of that.
Yeah.
Keep that list going.
Yeah. It might not be for this. Yeah. I mean, they just might be wonderful to include in this process.
Can I say something? I'm sorry, I have a hard time finding my raising hand. So I'm raising physically my hand the old way. I don't know why it's not working for me. But if we're looking at ally and global ally or national ally, Doug Tellamy could be a good one, right? Talking about someone who knows his plans, right, and has delivered, consistently result. He's a good ally. Maybe he would be interested.
I don't think that's a terrible idea. I think it's a good idea. I think he just comes with a price tag, that's all.
Talk about
We might not have that.
accessibility and inclusiveness, right?
Yeah, but he's the best of one of the best, right? Doing the entomology, doing the work.
Yeah.
So I'm not shooting you down. I'm just there.
That's why I wondered the Mount Cuba Center person, if that was like a sideways connection to him.
Oh, interesting. The thing about the Mount Cuba one, I believe that person is an expert in like the Everglades. Did that?
Well, it's land it's in Delaware though. Right?
Yeah, but that person who they chose was.
Yeah.
Well, I have a sense from you all that folks that are working farther away is less of your preference. Does that seem right? Nod your heads, yes or no?
Since it's a group of people that we're looking for, right? So I think that having a majority maybe working in the area is our preference, and then having a few who would bring specific, credential or whatever interest of course, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it fair to say, right, Renee? Yeah.
So I'm guessing that just Richard Padmack might be a question of whether or not it's possible, but we could ask. Seems like there's some interest in talking to him, but it might not be necessary and it might not be possible. Eli Block sounds like a no. Just like start talking if I'm saying something wrong. Kim Skirm seems like a no. Who else do we have that's a no? Elizabeth Crone, maybe we don't need to talk to because we've already got Nick on our team. Laura Rost, we can remove. Maybe we just hang on to Patricia Algara as the one person who can speak to sort of like the honeybee community, but also brings a lot of other credentials and interests to the mix. So it's not a honeybee focus, and we can make sure she knows what our priorities are. I think, I'm hearing Amy sent me an email earlier because she wasn't able to attend. She said she was interested in knowing how to keep the honeybee community sort of on our side, like participating and investing in this project. So it might just be we just have one person who has a link to that world, and that could cut it. Anyone else that we wrote? Yeah.
It's about the honeybee thing. I'm wondering if there's a way to insist sounds mean, but just be assured that if there is a honeybee focused person on this list, that they help us minimize the impacts of honeybees on our native pollinators. Like we're using their expertise with honeybees to lessen the horrible things honeybees do to our native pollinators, and really like be very honest that is our focus with them. We have people who keep bees. That's great for them, and honey's delicious, but that is not the point of this whole plan. Is that something we could ask of them?
I think yes. I also think that might mean that we try to get someone who is doing slightly more scientific engagement with honeybees to help us, sort of like parse apart that puzzle. And maybe that doesn't mean that someone who, like Patricia Algara, seems like more of a hobbyist beekeeper. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't like dug deep into her biography, but it might be that we look to somebody else who can speak to sort of the science behind honeybee interactions with other species.
That's a good point, Alison, because I think what we're all, worried about here is somehow we want to bridge so that we can go to that community of people who have a very specific kind of personality. I mean, I'm not trying to cluster, and then somehow to really have a bridge we can talk, right? Not alienate, right? It's not the thing. So the scientist here, or someone who is versed in communicating, right, might be the one. Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point.
Anybody else I missed who we were saying like, okay, no, we're good taking that person off?
Did I miss something? Or Ellen Lake, the Mount Cuba Center? I feel like no one was super excited about her.
That was a no. Yeah. Okay, great. Anyone else who hasn't been able to speak, who wants to share some comments or anything we haven't touched on yet?
I was just gonna add that maybe Kim from the Chief Apiary Inspector might also not be exactly what we're looking for.
That's a no, yeah, great.
I would just return very briefly to Patricia Algara, just to say that I think that returning to the discussion of how much is for pollinators, how much is pollinator support that's generated through public engagement, I do think that, especially with the community focus recently on designing accessible spaces, having places that are designed to spread awareness of pollinators that are accessible, and also public spaces that won't require redevelopment and that will serve both the agricultural purpose and not some years down the line require redesign because they're not accessible. We have a huge issue with public spaces. In our last report, we had only one of our parks was rated as completely acceptable under a lot of the standards that have been put out by the state. And so I do think that making sure that we're designing spaces that are durable throughout time does require someone with that accessibility. I'm not saying it has to be her. She's just the only one who came on this list of people with us that had that background. If we're not going to go with her, which this is a list that was given to us here, we have to have somebody that has a background in that. We just have to, because we can't design public spaces that won't endure because they're not accessible.
I think we could also ask her to speak to that. Like we've talked about, maybe we ask her to focus on the other aspects, like engaging with families and kids, inclusive design, accessible design, all of those things. And we try to, you know, just ask her to focus on that stuff. And maybe we ask somebody else to talk about the science that will help inform our approach to fostering native pollinators who, you know, yeah. Okay, cool.
Allison, it's Louisa. I just want to make sure that we have enough folks that are experts in trees, because trees provide so much habitat. And I wasn't certain that we had that, or trees and pollinators, I should say.
That's a good question.
Was there anybody on this list that spoke to trees?
I think so.
I don't think so either.
We could ask about that.
I think the only mention I see is Richard Primack, but again, that kind of goes with the phenology side of things.
Would Uli be? Oh shoot, David left, didn't he? I wonder if Uli would have a knowledge on that.
My guess is yes. But
And shrubs. Don't get forgotten.
Shrubs, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good argument for having someone who's coming from the plant side in the mix as well.
Or someone
Just
like
for
Doc
range.
Kennedy. Or someone like Doc Kennedy.
Right.
It's all about trees. I mean, it's a lot about trees.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, great. It's 5:15. We didn't get to the next thing I wanted to do, but that's okay. I'm going to send you all some homework and we'll talk about it the next time. I think this was great. I think, you know, we might not have like together come up with that final list, but I think that I have a very clear sense of your feedback. I think I can communicate that directive to them. And, you know, we'll make sure we throw in a little international perspective. We've got that accessibility in there. We're minimizing the bee focus and thinking about it in terms of interactions with our local species rather than anything else. And all of the other myriad of notes that I have just chaotically jotted down and will synthesize from Cynthia's notes as well. So I think we're going to come to a really nice list, and I think it'll be a really fun sort of opportunity for all of us to, you know, hear from these people too. And if you can't make it to the actual meetings, you can watch them on your own time. And it's just a good resource for us all to have, I think. Any last comments, questions? I also wanted to give you all an opportunity, like if you've had questions for the consultant team that have come up since We hired them. They'll be speaking to us at the next meeting, so you'll have a chance to ask them questions then too. But if anything's come up that you want to tell me to pass on to them now, happy to just give a moment for that. And if the public has any comments, if you want to share anything, now seems like a good moment too. Michael?
I just have a question. If they're coming to see us or talk with us next time in February, are they going to send us anything in advance for us to review, or are we going to just talk to them cold?
I don't know yet, but I can ask them to send you things in advance for review if that's preferable, and so you have a little time to mull things over.
Yeah, just because it's better than coming in cold and not knowing what they're doing or what we might want to ask them.
Yeah, that sounds good. I will ask them that.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. I just want to again bring up the Grow Native group because they just I think it was in October of last year, they had a native plant pop up where the farmers market is, and as we need to sort of look for avenues to have connections and be able to like get plants in people's hands. I think it would be wonderful if that was something, you know, we could do a native plant pop-up at the farmers market, at the growing center. So just, you know, just as another alliance. Yeah, they're good people. Thank you. Thank you, Allison.
And I think, by the way, that the Grow Native people also have on board, when I say on board, within that community, a landscaper, etc. So there's this kind of knowledge as well. So very good knowledge. I met one recently in the Fells. So yeah, so.
Okay. Any public comment? Anything? Jeffrey, Vincent, do you want to share? Happy to have you just listen to.
Yeah, as I said in the breakout session, this is Vincent. Just here, I'm from Belmont. Just here to observe. This could be a model for, you know, something we get around to doing
Nice.
in the future. So, thanks.
Excellent.
Likewise, what he said.
Thanks for coming. All right, everyone. If you want to chat with me, feel free to stick around, or you can leave. The thing we didn't get to was to talk about mobilizing our networks. I think there's still time for us to figure that out. But I would say just plant the seed in your heads of thinking about who do you know? Who do you have access to? What is the network that you have at your fingertips that can help us to get the word out, to engage our community members, that sort of thing. So we'll dig into that more another time. Thanks all. See you next month.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you, Allison. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Everyone.
Good night.
Allison, when do you need, definitely got to clean up these notes. And even clean up, I don't know how good they're going to be,
Yeah.
but